An astronomer, Stephen Mills, sends a radio signal across space to prove there is extraterrestrial life, only to accidentally cause another planet's impending demise. One of the planet's inhabitants is sent to Earth and must investigate how to save her planet, learning all about the beauties of human life along the way. At the Haddonkirk Research Laboratory, the head of the facility, Lucas Budlong, observes the stormy weather, sure that Stephen is the cause. Quickly, he heads for Mills' laboratory. At the same time, Stephen's brother Ron and Dr. Budlong meet at Mills' lab. Here, Stephen prepares to transmit a radio signal to another galaxy through a machine called the Klystron to prove that extraterrestrial life exists. Budlong warns Stephen to stay within the Klystron's power limit, and the determined scientist promises to follow his orders. On the other hand, Ron assures the boss that Stephen won't blow it up. To alleviate the tense atmosphere, he adds that he and his brother are attending a party tonight to mingle with women. Unamused, Budlong thinks Stephen's mission to send a radar signal 92 light-years away is absurd. When his boss leaves, Stephen continues preparing for his mission and plans to increase the Klystron's power by using lightning to carry their signal further away. Seizing the opportunity of the stormy weather, Stephen and his assistant, Grady, head to the satellite dish with Ron, casually waving at Budlong as they pass by. At the rooftop, they struggle to aim the satellite dish toward the lightning. Immediately after, the group rushes to the Klystron's control room and Stephen instructs Grady to turn the power to the highest level, as Ron places his wet blazer on a revolving chair. Then, they hurry back to Stephen's lab to harness the lightning. Stephen and Grady celebrate as the Klystron successfully transmits a signal out into the galaxy. Back at the Klystron control room, the revolving chair is pushed onto the Klystron's cage due to the strong wind. The brass buttons on Ron's blazer come in contact with the Klystron's caged power source, supplying more power to the machine. The entire research facility shakes due to the overpowered machine, and Dr. Budlong knows this is Stephen's doing. Meanwhile, at the Klystron control room, the pressure reaches way over its limit, causing the satellite dish to explode and the shaking stops. Stephen notices that his radar transmission not only reached outer space, it traveled to another galaxy. Suddenly, Budlong barges into the astronomer's office just as Stephen's monitors break, leaving no trace of his achievement. Later, Stephen arrives home and tells his 13-year-old daughter, Jessie, he lost his job. She comforts her dad, and while the two stargaze, Jessie wishes she had a mom again. Then, the two get ready and head to Ron's party. Meanwhile, in outer space, a spaceship heads toward Earth with an extraterrestrial named Celeste from the planet of cosine N to the 8th on board. Her advisor, Bag, will help investigate whoever sent a radio transmission to her planet that caused her planet's impending doom. Shortly after, the spaceship drops off Celeste on a beach and she heads to Ron's party. At the party, Ron introduces Stephen to several ladies and the alien arrives, asking for Dr. Stephen Mills. Ron, stunned by her beauty, nervously points toward his brother. She then heads toward Stephen as someone offers her a plate of appetizers. Confidently, she reaches for a used cigarette in the server's other hand. Celeste approaches Stephen and straightforwardly asks him about his radar beam. New to human customs, she talks about strange 50s and 60s references. Then, she asks a server for spinach, thinking it'll warm her hands as she sings Popeye the Sailor Man. The alien does a backflip on her way to Stephen and asks about his radar beam again as the entire party looks on. Stephen is still confused, so she goes outside, worried that she's a failure for acting insane. Pitying the odd woman, the scientist follows Celeste outside. The alien apologizes for her rudeness, but Stephen found her entertaining. Celeste asks him if he recently penetrated a radio transmission to another galaxy, which surprises him since he gets to talk about his passion. She questions how he sent the signal, but the scientist doesn't know what happened. Because of this, Celeste urges him to show his laboratory, but he reveals he got fired. To get what she wants, the alien presses her body against him, claiming she's cold. Stephen leans in to kiss her, but the alien avoids him and notices Jessie observing them. Celeste excuses herself and asks Jessie how to dress, so the girl gives her fashion magazines. The alien feeds her bag the magazine and it spits out a dress, surprising Jessie. Just as Celeste is about to change clothes outside, Stephen tells her to change in the back of his car. Moments later, the two arrive at the lab just as she's done changing into a new dress. In the facility, the guard doesn't let Stephen inside, so Celeste claims she works for the government. Her bag creates an ID to help them enter, and it spits out numerous IDs with her human identity so the guard lets them in. While Stephen checks the Klystron room, a one-eyed alien, Bag, pops out of her purse. Unable to figure out what happened, Bag thinks Stephen is lying. Suddenly, Budlong enters and questions who Celeste is, so the woman uses uses her bag to drag Budlong across the building. Meanwhile, the scientist finds Ron's destroyed blazer in the Klystron room. Later, Steven brings Celeste to the satellite dish to ask for a kiss. As he leans in, she stands there awkwardly, waiting for Bag to help her. So Bag projects the dictionary definition of a kiss and shows sample clips. Celeste follows along and imitates the video of a movie, event, cartoon, and animals, circling Steve like a bird and licking him like a lion. When Celeste pauses, Steven grabs her face and they share a romantic kiss. Afterward, Steven offers to bring her home, but she says it's too far, so he brings her to his home instead. At Steven's home, Celeste meets his dog Dave. Steven leaves to check on Jessie, allowing Bag to press Celeste about the transmission and instructs her to check on the scientist, whom Bag suspects. Upstairs, Celeste finds Steven with Jessie and suggests the two talk in Steven's room, but he takes this as an invitation for something more. The two head inside and make out, but before they can go further, Celeste goes to the bathroom to study what to do next. Celeste looks for definitions, videos, and magazines to help her with the next activity of the night. After watching instructional videos, she confidently heads to the bedroom. The two have an intimate moment as images of fireworks explode around them. Lying in bed, Steven asks Celeste why she chose him. She answers him with information he never told her. He worked hard in university, he's a dreamer, and his first wife died 5 years ago. Steven wonders how she knows all of this, to which Celeste simply replies that she can see it in his eyes. He seems satisfied with this and they continue on with their night together. When Steven is asleep, Celeste explores his house, looking for more intel on the astronomer's radio transmission. She checks his computer and reads books with the touch of her arm, but neither has the information she needs. Turning on the TV, the woman is enamored by the jazz performance of Jimmy Durante singing "Did You Ever Have the Feeling?" She copies his dance movements and enjoys the music. The following morning, a happy Steven introduces Celeste to Jessie, who grins with excitement because her dad is finally seeing someone. The teenager leaves for school, leaving Steven and Celeste alone. Steven confesses his feelings for the alien. However, Celeste remembers the very reason she was sent to Earth, telling him she's leaving and won't return. Desperate, he tries convincing her to stay, but without any other option, Steven proposes. With their relationship moving too fast, Steven gives her time to think. Then, the extraterrestrial woman walks to a baseball stadium to meet the council of her planet. Suddenly, 3 alien men are projected in the middle of the field. The council asks about Steven's transmission, so Celeste worries, saying that the scientist won't be able to think about science unless they're married. Unaware of what marriage is, the council reads several definitions of the term in their dictionary. One description states that a wife cooks, cleans, and gives martinis to her husband. Another description allows her to set fire to her husband and complain about him on a TV show. According to the council, the downside is Celeste will have to keep going to bed with Steven, to which she agrees ecstatically. She's optimistic that marriage will motivate him to transmit the radio signal tomorrow to save her doomed planet. The next day, as Jessie helps her father dress for his wedding, Ron interrupts and attempts to dissuade Steven against his hasty decision. Jealous of his brother's luck, Ron wonders why he can't get the girl of his dreams, Princess Stephanie of Monaco. Right after, Jessie goes to Celeste's room to tell her they're about to start the wedding, only to see the bride eating batteries. She also witnesses Bag talking to Celeste, making her more suspicious about her soon-to-be stepmother. Alarmed, the girl runs to her father, describing Celeste's strange behavior. The father dismisses her, assuring his daughter that Celeste won't come in between them. Not long after, the wedding starts with Celeste walking down the aisle as Steven's heart almost stops. Jessie holds the bride's dress, concerned about the impending union. Meanwhile, Dave inspects Bag, so the alien projects the image of an aggressive dog. Dave grabs Bag, brings it outside, and digs a hole to bury it in the front yard. Inside, the minister commences with the wedding, but sees Dave levitating through the window. His eyes widen, causing Celeste to rush through the vows and forgetting to kiss Steven. Celeste dashes outside to get Bag, followed by Steven and the guests, who were all confused. His wife distracts him by pointing up at Dave, who is now on the roof. As everyone tries to rescue Dave, Ron kisses the bride unbeknownst to Steven. The wedding ends with the newlyweds dancing at the reception. That night, Celeste and Steven get their daughter dolled up for a dance. Jessie asks her stepmother where she got a dress, but the alien simply giggles. Then, Jessie's date, Fred, arrives and introduces himself to her parents. Once the newlyweds are alone, she nudges him to get back to work so he can send the transmission, but he refuses because it's their wedding night. Shortly after, Bag calls Budlong under the name Carl Sagan, claiming to work for the president. Sagan's voice convinces Lucas to re-employ Steven at the lab. Later, Celeste has to accomplish one of her wifely tasks, to cook for her husband. With determination, she drives to a 24-hour diner, reaches for a menu, and leaves nonchalantly. Next, she goes to the supermarket supermarket where she gets her groceries. At the checkout counter, Celeste hands the cashier a diamond to pay for her items. The cashier rejects it, so the alien woman offers a $1,000 bill instead. This time, the cashier asks for a smaller bill, so the alien pulls out a miniature version of the same bill. At home, Celeste mixes her batter and sneezes for the first time, giggling at the sensation. She describes how funny, pleasant, and liberating it was to sneeze. Later that night, Jessie arrives home with her date. Once Fred has left, Jessie sees her stepmother who drinks their car battery. Then, Jessie watches as her stepmother picks up eggs from boiling water with bare hands, convinced that Celeste is not an ordinary stepmother. The next day, the family wakes up to a big breakfast prepared by the extraterrestrial woman. Steven shows Jessie his brother's new invention, metal clasp buttons. Celeste walks in, asking her family if they slept well. And although Steven affirms her, Jessie throws the question back at her, knowing that Celeste doesn't sleep. Suddenly, Steven receives a call from Dr. Budlong who reinstates him. Steven doesn't want to go to work yet, but Celeste pushes him to go, winning an arm wrestling match to persuade him. Soon after, Celeste hands Steven a martini and asks Jessie if she wants one. Weirded out, the girl rejects her offer and the woman leaves to do chores. Jessie confronts Steven about her stepmother, mentioning Celeste's diet that involves their car battery. Her father refutes Jessie's claims, and to prove her wrong, he drives the car without a problem. Inside the Mills home, Celeste cleans frantically as Bag advises her on their plan. The council will make lightning appear to power the Klystron and they can head home. Hearing this, Jessie calls Steven, luring him home under the pretense of a house fire. Bag catches Jessie and traps her in the living room. Bag makes the girl levitate to the ceiling and silences Dave. Her stepmother explains that Steven penetrated her planet's atmosphere with a radar beam. To save her planet, they must duplicate the transmission soon. Jessie claims that her father's transmission was an accident. However, Bag thinks she's lying, so the girl says that Steven wouldn't lie. Jessie learns that the alien woman will have to leave them once her mission is over. She is worried about her father and his eventual heartbreak if Celeste leaves. Celeste strikes a deal with Jessie to hide their identities if they let her down from the ceiling. The stepdaughter agrees, but when Steven arrives, she exposes the aliens. Jessie reveals that Celeste is an alien and that her Bag is an extraterrestrial too. However, Steven refuses to believe her. Frustrated by her father's disbelief, Jessie quickly leaves on her bicycle. With Celeste and Steven running behind her, a car speeds toward Jessie. Just in time, Celeste uses her Bag to save her stepdaughter from a fatal accident. The daughter runs into Steven's arms in tears. Grateful, Jessie faces Celeste, touched that her stepmother exposed herself to save her life. After the accident, Steven tucks Jessie into bed, followed by Celeste, who shares a touching moment with her stepdaughter. Steven and Celeste are back in their bedroom, talking about the differences between both their planets. Steven gives his wife her first sandwich, which delights the extraterrestrial woman. He tries to convince her to stay, but she knows her planet's predicament. Celeste expresses how she's bad at being human, and her husband comforts her. She says she feels like the song, "Did You Ever Have the Feeling?" She's conflicted whether she wants to stay or go. Steven wants her to stay, and the couple kiss passionately. Suddenly, they hear lightning, and Celeste touches the metal clasps on her husband's shirt. She is shocked by an electric spark, making Steven realize that it was static electricity that powered up the Klystron to make the transmission. This came from the cage around the Klystron and the brass buttons of Ron's blazer. As the family is about to rush to the lab, Bag informs Celeste that they have to destroy Earth after the transmission. The woman protests, leaving Bag behind, and the family heads to the lab. Bag then calls Ron, luring him with Celeste's voice so he can bring Bag to the lab. Meanwhile, Steven and Grady power up the Klystron and use metal to create the same effect they did before. Unexpectedly, Budlong comes in to witness the event to win favor with Carl Sagan. Soon, Ron arrives with Bag and the scientist activates the Klystron. It blasts a red beam, successfully transmitting radar signals all the way to cosine n to the 8th, saving the planet. While the family celebrates, Ron reveals he's in love with Celeste, who commands him to get rid of the Bag. Suddenly, Bag pops out and initiates the sequence to blow up Earth, so Steven grabs it and throws it into the Klystron. Bag's eye grows huge before it explodes. Suddenly, a council leader appears and teleports the whole group to the parking lot. He questions Celeste, asking why she hasn't destroyed Earth. Celeste lists all of her favorite things about her experience as a human. The council seems unimpressed, so she adds making love and sneezing to her list. Lastly, she names Jimmy Durante and performs his song with Steven. Still unsatisfied, the council commands for Earth's annihilation. But before anything else happens, the leader sneezes. He loves the feeling of the sneeze, making him feel alive. In her last-ditch effort, Celeste shows the council her love for the Earth through her eyes, reminiscing all of her wonderful memories there. This time, time, the council finally decides against destroying the planet, but pushes Celeste to come home and teach them about Earth. Refusing to let the love of his life leave, Steven tells the council how precious Celeste is to him, and she reciprocates his feelings. Instead, Celeste offers Ron to go in her place. He's open to the idea, wondering if the other aliens are beautiful like his sister-in-law. The extraterrestrials confirm this, and Ron agrees to go. Excited, Ron leaves on the spaceship, surrounded by a group of women who look like Princess Stephanie of Monaco as the council disappears. Back at the Mills residence, Steven turns down a round of basketball with Jessie, but Celeste stays behind with her. Jessie goes for a slam dunk, and she successfully flies to the hoop, thanks to a little help from her stepmother. In outer space, Ron is playing the piano as the group of beautiful women cheer him on.